Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, what am I going to do with all of the trees in my yard? Welcome back everyone. This is the most exciting time of year for most bonsai enthusiasts, and I am among those because I love spring. Now, I have trees in my plant room typically that I'm working on throughout the winter months, but boy, when it's spring and everything's new and buds are starting to push, leaves are growing, flowers are opening up, it's a new beginning. There's so many things to be said about spring, and when you've got bonsai trees, as many as I do, we are itching to get them out. Now, the good thing is the bonsai shuffle is done. Yeah, that dance was not too long ago, and we've had lows in the 20s in April. We've had highs in the upper 80s in April. Now we're in May, and we're a little bit above average so far, with temps in the low 70s, and our average highs for this time of year should be in the upper 60s. The roller coaster continues. So I've got some beautiful trees in front of me. I've got all my variegated, right? I've got the Triangularis, I've got the Benjamina here, and I've got my Mingoralia. Now these are in partial shade, especially because of this guy and this guy. These guys do not like the full sun, especially in summertime. Now in these spring months, maybe not is crucial, but that sun is still powerful, and it's gonna burn these Mingoralia. Super soft, supple foliage. And this one seems to do a little bit better with some partial shade. So my house is, I'm looking north, so south is back there, and the sun isn't quite high enough for the season to get this during the daytime. So in the springtime, these sit right here. So there's 3 of them on our little coffee table here. That's a little much. I think we would probably prefer 1. And then over here, we have the hibiscus tree. So Jeannie's hibiscus tree is right here. The bird has made it. The birds survived winter. And so I've got this right here. It's a really nice tree for right here. Not sure what we're gonna do with this, but these all have to get a little acclimated, of course, to outside weather. But boy, do I have trees everywhere. I've got the cabin cold frame. Yeah, so all the trees are outside of the cabin cold frame, and there's some spread out right now on the porch of the cabin cold frame. I have the bench near the cabin cold frame with just a couple of forests I recently repotted with Andrew Robson. Just further down the landscape of the yard past the pond are a few more scattered benches. I've got some Japanese maples there. I've got some new bristlecone pines in their first little pot, and I have a larch that I put in the Sarah Rayner pot this year. Those are looking fine, but those are bigger benches, if you will. Might need some more showy trees for those and not just a little hodgepodge, but that's what we got to do today. We have to start thinking about where to put all these trees. My newest bench behind the fire pit is where I keep my big forest. Got the new larch forest, which is looking really lush so far this spring, and then the forest behind it is the Minnesota forest number 2, as I call. And we've got those Alberta spruce in the background. Those are popping out buds like crazy. That'll be an upcoming show. And now we move over to the garden beds. Now the garden beds, I've shifted things around a little bit just to give them more space and air, but we got to move those big trees out of the garden so we can start to plant our garden pretty soon this year. The first bench I built has a whole bunch of large seedlings there. There are over 200 trees in some of that collection. I've got the Austrian pine there, and I also, of course, have the big slab planting with the white paper birch and those maple trees. I love the white paper birch this time of year. Those really lighter colored green leaves, kind of a mix, or some lighter, some darker. I just love those early birch leaves, looking great. And then some miscellaneous pine trees in there from the Bonsai Acres experiments in pots, and a larch or 2 and a juniper or 2. Yeah, a lot of trees. And then, whoa, look at the bench to the right. Now this bench has all the workshop trees for the July workshop for Minnesota Bonsai. There's 108 trees right there, 3 tropical varieties. We've got some willow leaf ficus this year. We've got some tiger bark, and then we also have some Green Island ficus. They're looking really good. Got those down in Weigert's. Andrea treating us really nice there with a great selection of trees. Some really cool twin trunks and some movement on the tiger barks. It's gonna be a fun year, and on top of the shelf is just some of my pieces parts. And I'm not done there. We still have the rest of my deck, which holds all the Portulacaria afers. I've got some on the railings. I've got some on the deck. I've got the great big maple with the chop from this year. And then I also have my workbench, which still has a whole bunch of trees. Again, a lot of Portucaria afras, some of the tropical Premnas and Melinas, and all the pieces, parts. And what am I going to do? I say, what am I going to do with all these trees? Well, on this glorious 8th day of May, I think we're going to just look at some options. Where am I going to put them? We're going to have to do some bonsai shuffling, did anyone say? I think one of the easiest places for me to start is the individual bonsai posts that I have some of my a little bit further along trees. Nothing is in refinement yet. These are all developing trees. I'm not even close to that part of the bonsai world. But I have my recently repotted into the Sarah Rayner pot, formal upright large. So that post is a little big for that, but I think if we just put this over here, we'll keep that right here. This is where I'm going to start the process. I just need to find something decent for right here, and then we can go on to this one over here. Up first, I think the Chinese elm needs a home on this big one next to the larch. Now, there's some sad news to report. I've had some critter chop this year, and unfortunately, this is one that suffered. Now, from your vantage point, it looks relatively okay, but let's turn it around and reveal the backside that some critter thought would be better in its mouth than in this pot. Now, it'll tell a story. It may survive. It may not. The 2 roots that were coming from here that went into the soil were chewed off. And all of this damage right there. Yeah. The tears are there. Okay, that ain't gonna work. It's too big. So, I remembered I have a square pot with one of my PAs in. It's this twin trunk, and it's square, and I think it'll be a good spot right here. Yeah. So not overly huge. We got room around the bench. We can showcase these 2 trees. Be nice if it was maybe a little bit taller, but that's okay. I just need space to put all my trees. Another sad story to report. It was good, and then it was bad, but then it was really good, but then it got bad again, but it's still good. Here's what I mean. I took my long Cascade for 3-4 years, wasn't doing anything. And I was wiring this a couple of weeks ago, and snap, I snapped the branch. And everybody commented in on this comment section down below, said, "Oh Dave, that oops was a pretty good oops, it looks better." And then a couple of weeks, or about a week later, maybe a few days, a week later, I went back and I just didn't think any of that bend I wanted in there was in there. So I tried to move that bend a little bit more back towards the front. Yeah, I broke again another one. And so now, yeah. So we'll put the Sarah Rayner pot with the broken, and we'll hope it recovers. All right, 2 benches down, so much to go. Let's move over a little bit over to this side. A little bit lower to the ground, I have this bench on top of a wood post here, and I have another Sarah Rayner pot with one of my Japanese maples. Now, I just repotted this one. This is the dark pot. I did this again with Andrew when he was in town, and so it's a decent black-looking pot with a little bit of that beige stripes on here. And this is get this nice reddish-green early leaves. Of course, it'll hopefully turn some reds and oranges in the fall. So that one's it's there. We made a couple of little minor trims here, and it's one of those trees where Andrew said, "You ever consider making a shohin out of that?" And so we'll talk about a shohin tree in a moment. But, you know, there's some movement in this tree, so there's some potential in the future. And so we just cut off this tall branch here and trimmed a couple of things, and we've got some movement, and we'll see where this tree goes. This is a tree that had no thickness at all. And so we just literally chopped it off right here with about 1 inch left. Now this will die back, and this is the tree, and this will be the new tree. But we're going to move that aside. And I think we're going to put one of my Siberian forests next to this oval, and we'll just put 2 oval pots next to each other. I think that'll work for now. So back here I have a post that sometimes I'll put one of my slabs on here, and I could probably get 2 trees on there. But this usually gets overtaken by the lilac bushes, so for right now I'm just going to leave this clump style There you go. Bristlecone pine. 3 bristlecones. We twined them together, and these are new that came from the Michigan Bonsai, or the Michigan nursery that I get my larches from. I thought I'd try a couple bristlecones. This also has had big trees on it in the past, but I have one of my Japanese maples. So this is a tree that we didn't do really anything to this year other than repot it. So I have it in a new pot, and I have some fresh soil, 2 years before the last repot, so this should be good. This Japanese maple we'll just let go out here, and we'll decide what branches we're going to keep. But we're liking the more traditional style to this tree, because maples typically will grow up and will have a lot of main trunks, and not just maybe one prominent trunk. So we're going to have multiple trunks here, kind of, or multiple branches going up, like many of the maples in my neighborhood here, and we'll just let it keep growing out here, and we'll see what we get in a little while. So I think this one's going to stay here. So now these posts are taken care of. So next up is the benches here back behind the fire pit. These benches were made 2 years ago. So here's the Alberta spruces with all kinds of new buds. Again, a future episode we'll be doing some little trimming on here before they get too out of control. But now I can see what's alive, what's pushing out growth, and we can make some big decisions on these Alberta. And then there's a couple of Siberian elms up here, I think a Quaking aspen or two, and that's the Minnesota forest. And of course we got the larch up there. Now those are big, huge pots, and for right now, I've got 2 right next to each other, which isn't ideal. So I think I'm gonna move one of these over to the other big bench over there. So we'll do that eventually today, but not until there's room on those other benches. This is a nice area if I ever need to have some shade for my trees. I'll have some partial shade in the morning, and then some good afternoon sun, and then some evening shade, and then maybe some late afternoon sun. So it gets a good variety here if I ever have a tree that I don't want to have indirect sun all day. Let's go find things to fill up this top section. Not a big pot by any stretch, but my tiger bark ficus is one of my bigger trees in a decent pot. And we'll put this one right here. And it's been outside for about a week in kind of indirect sun. And we got a little bit of yellowing on a couple of leaves. It might have been a little bit stressed bringing it outside, but I think it's okay. I also have my great big boxwood. This is the boxwood that has the little critter hole in there, like there's some squirrel or a bird or chipmunk or something that lives in there. We'll put that over here. It'll get some sun, some indirect and some direct. The boxwoods for me seem to be doing good where I don't keep it in the full sun all day long to torch it out. And so I'll keep this one over here for a little while as well. So that leaves me with space for 1 or 2 more up here. Now I probably could put a little bit of a lift on here so you can see the trees better, but for right now I'm getting my trees in spots and I have a long way to go. I think another good candidate for this bench is the mother-in-law Schefflera. So this is the original cutting from my mother-in-law, and it also doesn't seem to like full sun in the summer all day long here in my backyard. Not sure why. So this will be a great spot for some morning respite, some early afternoon sunshine, and then a little respite behind the leaves for the hot part of the day, and we'll see how it does here. So that rounds out the back row. I do have 4 trees here. They're a little hidden behind these Alberta spruces, but those might get trimmed or might get moved to their bench. We'll find out. But this bench for right now, we can move some things around with some of the smaller ones, but it's full. Let's move on to the next bench and see if we can make room for one of these guys to get shifted over there. So next up is my first bench. Now the neighbors just took out an electrical saw to cut some trees and a plane just flew over. I'm just gonna have to sit and ponder this one. We're gonna have to get rid of the Austrian pine up front here. Now we got all those pine trees on the middle shelf. Those are the Bonsai Acres test trees. We'll move those off the bench and put them on the sides of the gardens. But I gotta move stuff around before I can bring anything over to this area. Okay, that was a bit of a beast, but we got it up there. So that's a very big pot for up there, but it just fits from front to back really, really nice. We'll center it so it goes equal distance from that kind of center post and have 2 trees on either side. I really like the forest up there. It really showcases a big old forest. So I think we'll keep that one there. So rounding out the bench, we have the white pine that I just dug up from the garden of Bonsai Acres. That's over on the left. I've got another newly repotted Japanese maple. This is a crabapple tree that I dug up from my urban Yamadori show. We've got the trident maple right here. We've got another Bonsai Acres tree. This is one Neil Kruger just gave to me because he didn't think it would work as a tree. I cut off the top and now we're going to get that thing going. I have my little barberry from my dad's. That was the one that had kind of a heart base, that real thick bark. Now we have a quake and aspen over there on the right. And then down here I have all the rest of the larch trees. And I'm going to put one of my PAs down here, one of my bigger PAs. And then this one is the Melina, which has incredible growth. Now it's got a little bit of burnt leaves from being outside, so we're going to have to make sure we watch this one carefully. But these branches here are way too long, so we're going to cut those up and shorten up the tree. Next, I tackled the cabin cold frame porch, where I had a lot of miscellaneous trees over there that I didn't know if they were going to stay there or not. But the reason why I had to move them is because of the newest bench that I made last year for all the MBS trees that I usually store for the wintertime. I don't know if you can tell, but I have trees spilling out into my yard, which is going to make mowing the grass every week a little challenging. So I have to move some of the trees. Now the tiger bark ficuses did really well over on the cabin cold frame side of things last year. Now, albeit they probably would have liked a little bit more sunshine, they didn't baste in the sun. They just kind of stayed there and grew slowly throughout the summer and picked up steam towards July. So we're going to move some of these. Really fun. There's some really nice movement on some of these tiger barks. We're going to get these into the black bin and now put these over there by the cabin cold frame shelf where I just removed all those trees and put them up there. So we have some of my taxus trees there. We've got one of the pine trees. There's one of the Korean firs up there from Bonsai Acres. One of the more developed trees so far. We have some more Siberian forest there, the Cotoneaster, Japanese quince, I believe, right there. And then we have a couple of the other trees, the burning bush and stuff that was dug up from the Urban Yamadori episode, which you can check on the playlist a couple of episodes ago. So we have to go move these trees. We'll put them in the bin so I can do about, 12, 15 at a time. Saves, work smarter, not harder. "36 tiger bark ficus trees, all sit in a glorious spot right now. Now as spring turns into summer, the tree above here is going to have a lot of leaves, and so we'll get some early morning sun, midday sun, and then afternoon sun. So they'll be protected and probably would be a little bit better in a little more sun, but I'm limited to where I could keep them, and they did fine here last year. So the acclimation to Minnesota continues. We have 36 here on the south side of the cabin cold frame. Now let's go rearrange the ones back there where I got these from and see if we have enough room to cut the grass peacefully. So I think I'll get all the Green Island ficuses back up onto the bench. They were here last year and did really well. That means I won't have room for all of the willow leaf. But they're skinnier, we can fit down at the bottom. "36 Green Island ficus, 36 willow leaf ficus. We are set. I can cut the grass we have almost all our trees where they need to go for right now anyway. Let's see what's next. After rearranging all those trees on the other benches, I have some trees that I can go ahead and maneuver over to this bench. Oh, by the way, I told you I'd remember this. Brush cherry. Yeah, this is the brush cherry one. We got some room for some miscellaneous pots, so let's bring them over. Well, that's still not all the trees, but it's some of the more major pots. I have a lot of PAs and training pots and some Premnas and some tropicals that are still up on the workbench and the deck by the house. But you know what? I am hot. I need a drink of water, and I think it's time to water all the trees. They're a bit thirsty as well. So we'll leave it as is and start the watering. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm a little tired. Got a lot of trees moved, everything's watered. I think it's time for a break. Got a lot of little pieces, parts that still need some nooks and crannies to go into, but I have an semblance of a somewhat finished, put together bonsai garden yard. So we'll leave it at that. Whew. Time for some rest. All right, that's gonna do it for this show. Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very soon on the next one.